sick part of it all here is that Meghan, in her dumbest move yet, has completely shut this person down.
And the loss of it allegedly was just devastated her. She supposedly has been relying heavily.
Well. If it isn't two snakes fighting, because Meghan Markle's past is truly coming back to bite her in the butt. And I am here for.
The most unsettling part of this entire situation is that Meghan Markle appears to have made what may be her most short-sighted decision yet by deliberately cutting off someone who remembers everything. Because in elite circles, silence is never empty, it is loaded with memory, and when you dismiss a figure like Sarah Ferguson, someone who survived the monarchy, observed its secrets, and understands how influence really works, you are not erasing history, you are provoking it. And Meghan's long-held belief that she could move through powerful spaces without her past ever resurfacing is now colliding with the reality that some witnesses do not forget. They wait.
Meghan thinks that she can go through life spiting everybody, hurting people, stepping on people, and never coming back to.
For years, Meghan operated under the assumption that ambition leaves no fingerprints, that strategic relationships fade once the spotlight shifts, but insiders argue that her early rise was never accidental and never unnoticed, particularly by figures like Sarah Ferguson, who recognized familiar patterns of access, positioning, and curated opportunity. Because Fergie has lived through the same unspoken rules and understands how proximity to power often matters more than talent, pedigree, or even public narrative.
Was made during an interview with The Telegraph ahead of the release of Fergie's new novel, a most intriguing.
Long before Meghan Markle became a global headline or learned how to navigate royal protocol, she was already moving through private ecosystems where introductions mattered more than resumes and discretion mattered more than fame. And according to those familiar with these elite spaces, she learned early that influence is quietly traded behind closed doors, in dimly lit lounges, members-only clubs, and carefully managed social environments where being placed correctly could change the course of a life.
Is Sarah Ferguson, who is as bad as Meghan Markle. They're both cut from the same.
Insiders consistently describe these early environments as worlds built not on visibility but on access, where careers were curated rather than earned publicly, and Meghan was not wandering through them by chance, but being guided, positioned, and introduced with intention, which is precisely why Sarah Ferguson noticed her, not out of suspicion, but recognition, because the trajectory looked familiar to someone who had once walked a remarkably similar path.
Had no judgment of Prince Harry and Meghan, but explained that she did not know Meghan very well.
Soho House, often romanticized as a creative hub, is described by those who understand it as a social engine where advancement is strategic and nothing is random, where seating arrangements, introductions, and invitations quietly shape futures. And within that ecosystem, Meghan's ascent appeared unusually rapid, prompting whispers that powerful figures were investing in her trajectory long before the public ever knew her name.
He's not. And what Fergie is negotiating allegedly right now is a tell-all book, and that's what she's using to threaten the royal family.
What separates rumor from real concern is not speculation alone, but the fact that Sarah Ferguson knew these systems intimately, having once relied on similar networks herself, and according to sources close to her, she recognized Meghan's acceleration not as luck, but as orchestration, because investments in elite circles are never given freely, they expect returns. And that understanding changes how the story is viewed.
Having told journalist Celia Walden that she always says to her daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice, no one wants to see a grumpy princess. The conversation
When Meghan officially entered royal life, insiders say Sarah Ferguson quietly reached out, not as a rival or critic, but as a woman who understood the isolation, scrutiny, and hidden rules of monarchy, believing that a shared understanding of power and survival could form a meaningful connection. Yet what followed shocked her, because Meghan never responded, leaving behind a silence that felt less accidental and more deliberate.
Royal family. Yes, it does, but it also involves Rachel Meghan Markle because Fergie had.
That silence, according to those close to Ferguson, was not merely personal but symbolic, signaling that Meghan had chosen to distance herself from anyone who had witnessed her early ambition, strategy, and maneuvering, and to Fergie, that absence of acknowledgement felt like an attempt to erase shared history rather than confront.
Has gone from the loyal wife who stands by.
What makes this dynamic dangerous is not jealousy or rivalry, but miscalculation, because Sarah Ferguson does not resent ambition, she recognizes it, and sources insist she believed Meghan underestimated her, not as a former duchess, but as a survivor who had endured humiliation, scandal, and exile while retaining clarity, memory, and an understanding of how narratives are constructed and dismantled.
Care what Sarah has to say because he has nothing to worry about. It's standing firm and making certain demands to King Charles because King Charles is willing to concede because King Charles is a little bit too high.
Unlike others who react emotionally, Ferguson is described as methodical, someone who corrects narratives not with chaos but with precision, and insiders argue that this is what makes her particularly threatening in the current royal climate. Because context, not scandal, is the true weapon capable of unraveling carefully polished public stories.
Soon. I don't believe that Charles is guided by love or family. He's guided by self-preservation. So Fergie now has reached out to the least likely person you would think, right?
As whispers of a potential tell-all grow louder, palace insiders reportedly fear not illegality but contradiction, because the early chapters of Meghan's rise, her access, her guidance, her strategic introductions, challenge the simplified version of events presented to the public, and Ferguson is uniquely positioned to provide that missing context without threatening the institution itself.
That she never met her before. Never, ever, ever. Well, now she's changing her tune. And now she wants her pound of flesh. Now it's payback time.
King Charles, according to sources, understands this risk and approaches it pragmatically, favoring quiet negotiation and subtle concessions, aware that Ferguson's memory spans decades of royal turbulence, while Prince William is said to take a harder line, refusing to acknowledge leverage or reward silence, creating a divide that leaves Meghan increasingly exposed.
People say, oh, Fergie never talked bad about the royal family because Fergie was literally blackmailing the royal family into keeping her there, which is...
Caught between caution and defiance, Meghan finds herself vulnerable to a narrative she no longer controls. Because Ferguson's knowledge of her early social ascent, elite networking, and strategic positioning represents an angle the palace cannot easily shield, especially when the person holding that knowledge has nothing left to protect.
A long time and does not know a lot of the secrets because Fergie has been part of the shady deals that Andrew has done and some of...
Insiders stress that Ferguson does not seek revenge or tabloid chaos, but equilibrium, believing that stories should reflect lived truth rather than publicist-crafted mythology, and when only one version of history is allowed to stand, correction becomes inevitable rather than optional.
So what is really scary here is that Fergie reaches out to Meghan saying, hey, you need to help me out. I need to go because Fergie's...
What makes Ferguson uniquely dangerous is her detachment from fear. Because her influence has waned, her title offers no protection, and her favor with the palace has diminished, leaving her unburdened by the need for approval and free to act solely from memory and strategy.
Does that sound familiar? Fergie saying, oh, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. Why? Because now she no longer has the use of the title. That's very, very Meghan Markle. That's what's going to happen.
Rumors persist that Meghan's ambitions were broader than romance alone, with some insiders claiming her sights were set on royal proximity itself rather than a single individual, and that Harry may not have been the only path considered, a narrative fueled by recollections from those who encountered her in elite social circles long before her public debut.
Title, I'm going to call my good friend Meghan Markle because guess what? Ron Burkle was nothing to do with it.
These whispers gain weight not because they are new, but because Ferguson observed them unfolding in real time, understanding the mechanics of access, the role of gatekeepers, and the deliberate nature of social positioning, making her testimony uniquely credible should she choose to speak.
You know who Ron Burkle is? He is basically the employee of Marcus Anderson, the owner of Soho House, and basically the main pimp for Rachel Meghan Markle.
Names like Marcus Anderson and Ron Burkle frequently surface in these discussions, described by sources as architects of access rather than casual acquaintances, individuals who controlled introductions and placements capable of accelerating social ascent, and Ferguson reportedly understood their influence well.
Arranged by Marcus Anderson to Jamaica in 2017 to that wedding of Prince Harry's friend. Well, Harry flew economy.
According to those close to her, Ferguson did more than observe. She advised discreetly, recognized patterns, and cataloged interactions, which is why palace officials reportedly fear her ability to connect each opportunity directly to a broader strategy that contradicts the public narrative.
Eugenie and Prince Andrew. Of course, it was a small place. And I say this to you guys so you understand that this is not like it's a big ceremony. The chapel, they got married in a...
Unlike speculation that fades, Ferguson's recollections are described as structural rather than anecdotal, built from first-hand experience and long observation, and in royal circles, that kind of knowledge is power.
Who know your skanky past. And Fergie's ready to tell on Meghan Markle. She's ready to destroy her. She's ready to put it out there. I don't know if she's ready to do it out of spite for Meghan.
Those who assume Ferguson will remain silent may be misunderstanding her entirely, because she understands both the consequences of disclosure and the cost of silence, and insiders warn that underestimating her patience would be a serious mistake.
Because it could be also happening that the royal family is saying, hey, if you put a book out about Meghan Markle and completely destroy everything and really tell the people how Meghan met.
If she speaks, sources insist it will not be emotional or impulsive, but calculated, released at a moment when clarity carries maximum impact. Because fairy tales do not collapse from lies alone, they collapse when someone who remembers every step decides the truth matters more than discretion.
That meaning how you've known Meghan since at least 2010, then we can work with you, or we're going to compensate you with somehow. Because
Meghan's greatest vulnerability, insiders argue, is not criticism but exposure from someone who remembers the unpolished beginnings, the private introductions, and the curated access that shaped her trajectory long before the palace gates opened.
She's not that stupid yet. She's not that dumb, but she's willing to sell Meghan Markle out, especially now that she's angry that Meghan is...
While some whispers remain speculative, Ferguson's confirmation would transform rumor into revelation, shifting perception from gossip to documented context that the monarchy cannot easily dismiss.
Help her out. Fergie, of all people, should know that. Wasn't she communicating secretly with Jeffrey Epstein while pretending that she...
Sources close to Ferguson say her patience is thinning, her willingness to stay silent fading as she watches narratives solidify without challenge, and when correction comes, it will leave little room for reinterpretation.
Goes and exposes Rachel. Oh, my dear Lord, that will be juicy, at least from my perspective. I mean, Meghan forgets a lot of times that people like Fergie can read.
Every alliance, every placement, every whispered introduction could be recounted with precision, painting a picture of ascent far more complex than the polished public version long accepted.
Marcus Anderson. Because Fergie, people are still backing her behind the scenes. And Fergie is desperate.
The palace reportedly watches this situation with quiet unease, aware that reputations are not undone by noise but by clarity, and Ferguson possesses an archive of memory capable of redefining perception.
And say, it's my book, but they will do an Omid Scobie. They will hire somebody to do that book, or a third party pretending that nobody gave...
Meghan's miscalculation may have been believing that distance equals safety, when in reality distance often sharpens memory and resolve in those who feel erased.
Her Harry's best friend to the wedding because he knew her, if you know what I mean. He knew her. So it's sick, isn't it?
Insiders emphasize that this is not about punishment but about truth, and when truth is held by someone with nothing left to lose, it becomes far more powerful than scandal ever could.
Clash with the booing. It's a reality check that they have to face, but it's incredible that Harry just smiled in spite of the fact that he's through fire, burning her feet, her ass, her fake extensions, and she will be burning. I'm dying, but she will be smiling because that smile is not natural. That is...
If Sarah Ferguson finally chooses to speak, it will not merely disrupt narratives but redefine them, because history does not disappear when ignored. It waits for the moment someone decides silence is no longer worth keeping. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to US King Master for more powerful and eye-opening content. Thanks for watching.